Hello! Today I'm going to show you how to bake and decorate a very simple cake. It's a vanilla and chocolate cake with a chocolate ganache covering. Let's get started.
The ingredients are really simple. If you're making a chocolate cake, you need cacao powder or cocoa powder, eggs, butter or margarine. Here I'm using some margarine with buttermilk. If you're using vanilla to make a vanilla cake, make sure you use vanilla extract, not vanilla essence. It's much nicer. Or if you have vanilla pods, that's even better. And of course you need sugar, and you're going to need some self-raising flour. The proportions are very simple to remember. Equal proportions of butter, flour and sugar. So in this case, I'm going to fill two 8-inch pans. So I'm going to put 300 grams of butter, 300 grams of sugar and 300 grams of self-raising flour. And for every 100 grams, you add 1 egg and then an extra. So for instance, if I'm making a 200 gram cake, I'll add 3 eggs. In this case, because I'm making 300 grams worth of batter to split between my two fairly shallow tins, I'm going to add 4 eggs. So again, equal proportions of all the other ingredients, butter, sugar and flour, and the same number of eggs plus 1. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm about to beat together my 300 grams of butter, 300 grams of sugar, my 4 eggs and a little bit of vanilla essence. So I'm just going to beat that until it's nice and combined. So now that it's nice and combined and I've scraped down the sides, I can now add in my self-raising flour. Now, even though you can use an electric beater, and it's great to use that to combine the eggs, sugar and butter, it's better to fold in the self-raising flour by hand, because this way you don't get quite such a dense cake and you don't want to lose all the lovely air you've gotten from beating your eggs. So with this basic recipe, I can now add in 300 grams of flour and I have a lovely vanilla cake. Or I can also add in a few tablespoons of cacao powder or cocoa powder to make it a chocolate cake. If I decide another flavor of cake, for instance, if I want to make a lemon curd cake or a orange marmalade cake, if I want to add any sort of jam or any other sweet ingredients, I would reduce the sugar by a little. Maybe instead of 300 grams, I would put in 250 grams and then add in 50 to 80 grams of my lemon curd to make it lemon curd cake, or 50 to 80 grams of my strawberry jam or any jam that you fancy, or even ginger jam to make a lovely ginger cake. So it's a very forgiving recipe. You can also add nuts or raisins or any sort of dried fruit you prefer. And if you're doing that, then add just a little bit more flour. So maybe instead of the 300 grams of flour, 320 grams of flour, just to give a little bit more body for these crunchy ingredients. So that is my very basic cake recipe that you can adapt to any flavor or filling you like. So I'm going to mix in my self-raising flour. I'm going to bake it in the oven for roughly 45 minutes at 160 degrees Celsius. After about 35 to 40 minutes, I'm going to check it by putting a toothpick into the center of the cake. If it comes out clean, my cake is ready. If it's still a bit moist, I will leave it in the oven. Do not open the oven door for the first 35 minutes or your cake could deflate. So it's quite safe in there for the first 35 minutes. And then if you find it's browning at the top, you can give it a test. If you find your oven is quite hot and that the cake browns at the top very quickly, you can also cover the cake after about 35 minutes with a little bit of kitchen foil, just so it cooks through and doesn't brown too much on the top. So I'll show you where we are there. A vanilla chocolate cake now going into the oven. here we have the lovely vanilla cake and the chocolate cake out of the oven. So I'm going to let this completely cool for about half an hour to 45 minutes, and then I'm going to try and ice it with some chocolate ganache. So I'll show you that in a minute. See it? For the ganache, we need some good quality dark chocolate chopped up and an equal amount of double cream. So we're going to mix the two together and heat it up in 10-second bursts in the microwave. So roughly about three times. So 30 seconds broken up into 3 10-second bursts. And you mix after each one. And then just let it melt in the residual heat and then cool down. And I'll show you what it looks like. So here we have the lovely melted ganache ready. It's nice and liquidy now, just out of the microwave. So I'm just going to let this cool down in the fridge for about 10 minutes or so, and it will harden up a little bit into a lovely icing. If it gets too hard, just leave it out in a warm place and it'll become more liquidy again. But simple, beautiful and delicious. Okay, right, so now I have my cake board on which I'm going to serve my cake. On it, I've put 2 pieces of grease-proof paper with the edges lined up in the center where my cake is going to be. So I'm going to put the first layer of my cake right on the board, ice it and build my layers, and at the end ice the whole cake. Then I can just pull away the 2 sides of the greaseproof paper and leave a lovely clean cake board. So here I've got my cake. Now mine's a multi-tiered cake with the ganache in between each layer. So what I'm going to do now is I've reheated my ganache just slightly in the microwave so it's nice and pourable, and this is the simplest way to do it. We're just going to pour the ganache right on top of the cake, right on the top, and then let it slowly pour around, spread it round the sides. So I'm not covering all of the cake, but if you wanted to cover a full layer of cake, then obviously you'd make a lot more ganache. But the idea is it's just simple. You just pour everything in like that, and then gently start encouraging it to drip down the sides of the cake. So it'll be a lovely coating of smooth chocolatey ganache all over your cake. So I'll keep spreading it round and I'll show you what it's like when it's all done. So here I'm just pressing in some gold chocolate flakes into my cake just to give it some decoration on the side. And now I'm very gently pulling away the grease-proof paper with all the mess. It should gently slide out from underneath your cake, taking all the mess with you. You can put all that away, and it'll leave you with a lovely cake that you'd be happy to serve at any birthday for any occasion. I hope you enjoy it.